Hi, welcome back or welcome to my channel if you're new. My name is Laura. Hi, hello, welcome. First, I just want to say thank you so much for all the love and support on my first single shadow week last week. Every single day last week, I posted a single shadow themed video for the entirety of the week. 7 days of posting, technically 8 because this is going to be the 8th day in a row that I'm posting, but that is neither here nor there. I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of the support and likes, comments, anything like that over the course of the past week. It was not unnoticed. I appreciate you so much, but leave me any video suggestions for any other single shadow week type content or like single Saturday kind of videos. Leave those down in below for me. I would love some suggestions on what you guys want to see. We are here for a totally different type of video on my channel, and it's really just trying to get me to curb my eyeshadow consumption a little bit, and that is by doing an eyeshadow bank type of project. And there are quite a few YouTubers and like people on Instagram that do beauty bank kind of things, like a one in, one out, no buy kind of thing. But this is really just centered around eyeshadows. And I love eyeshadows. I love buying, I love trying, I love using, I love panning. I love eyeshadows. They're my favorite part in my makeup routine. They're what I take the most time. It's what I have the most joy. I love kind of thinking of different looks and different things to kind of combine together. This is a very boring look, but I did get a compliment. We went out to breakfast. I got a compliment from the waitress on this. It was very nice. I really just need to kind of take a step back and curb some of my eyeshadow consumption. Very much so. I need to curb my eyeshadow consumption and use what I have. I have bought a lot of things. I have bought a lot of Clionadh shadows. I swatched my entire Clionadh collection. If you haven't seen that, I will link it. So this is just in hopes for me to get some use out of my collection, pan some makeup, use up some things, that kind of thing. And I thought, what better way to do that than document it on the internet? I should know myself. I need to write things down in order to stay on track. So I have my rules for my eyeshadow bank all listed out, and I'm very, very, very excited about this because it's going to be something totally different and very new to how I've ever structured, like trying to lighten my consumption and bringing more things into my collection. And I'm really excited about this. And I'm really excited to try to just get more use out of my collection as a whole. And some of the ways that I can gain points in this are going to be usage driven. Some of them are goal driven. And I'm kind of excited. I'm just kind of excited about this. Let's just talk about how I can use my eyeshadows to gain points and how we can redeem those points into bringing eyeshadows into my collection. I'm super excited about this. Let's just talk about how I can gain points into my bank first. I wanted this to be challenging in terms of like panning eyeshadows, finishing eyeshadows. That's how I can gain some points into this bank. But I also want this to be usage driven. And I think what better way to do that than kind of inspiring myself to use my collection to gain points too. Because a lot of my issue with my collection is I really hyper focus in on my project pans. I really am trying, as of this past month, really trying to take a step back. I don't need to pan eyeshadows. I just need to use my eyeshadows. So this project, this bank style project, is going to also help me use my collection and not just pinpoint certain parts of my collection to hit pan on. I want to use the broad scope of my collection. So in efforts to do that, if I happen to no pan left behind and use every single shade in a palette, I'm going to give myself a point. Because I feel like doing that, like no pan left behind, and can sometimes be a little hard too. Sometimes there are shades in a palette, I'm looking at like these ones right here for me, this little L shape, are very difficult for me to use. And I'm a little bit more comfortable with these kinds of shades, but there are shades in palettes where I'm just like, do I even want to use it? That kind of thing. So if I am forcing myself to use shades, I want to give myself some kind of credit for it. So if I happen to no pan left behind, and I'm not going to give myself credit for palettes that I have no pan left behind in the past. This is fresh and new. If I no pan left behind a palette starting today, September 17th, I will be tracking my no pan left behind in this capacity where any full palettes that I use, I'm going to give myself a point for. So there's that. Also, with the usage train of this project, this banking of eyeshadow points in hopes to get more use out of my collection and use out of different shades in my collection, I'm also giving myself some goals with using shades, like different thresholds to meet to use shades. If I use one shade 10 times, I'm going to give myself 1 point for that. If I use one shade 30 times, I'm going to give myself 1 point for that. If I reach for a shade 50 times and I use one single shade 50 times, I'm going to give myself a point for that. I almost gave myself like increased points, but I feel like 1 point for that many uses is still good because I'm only going to charge myself a point per pan. So I feel like giving myself 1 point is totally fine for that. So I'm also allowed, I think I mentioned, I can hit a pan of eyeshadow and that's going to be a point also. However, if I finish an eyeshadow, if I completely finish an eyeshadow, I give myself 2 points for that sucker because finishing an eyeshadow is so much more difficult than just hitting pan. Especially for me, I have a very hard time finishing eyeshadows, a much easier time panning eyeshadows. So if I finish an eyeshadow, I'm giving myself 2 points for that sucker. If I no pan left behind, use it 10 times, use it 30 times, use it 50 times, or hit pan in it, that's 1 point for any of those goals. So say I hit pan in Cavalier in 3 uses, I get 1 point. Say I hit pan in it and then I use it another 10 times on top of that, I get 2 points. One for the, I'm just going to flick you off. One for the pan, one for the usage that I get in it. So even when pans have pan in it, I'm still able to get points in some capacity. And I think that's going to just help me out because sometimes I don't know about you guys, but I know me personally, if I hit pan in an eyeshadow, I kind of move completely away from that shade. And I want to get away from that. I want to use all of the eyeshadows because even if a shade has pan in it, it's still in my collection and I still should be using it. Yet I have a hard time wanting to reach for shades after they hit pan because I'm like, oh, well, the whole rest of my collection needs to have pan too, so I need to use that. Let's talk about how I can spend my points next. So I'm going to use a new palette in my collection. I couldn't stop myself. So let's talk about like how I would have bought this if I was using my own rules. So realistically, how I want to structure this is anytime one shade comes into my collection, a shade is a point. So an 18 pan palette like this is 18 points. So realistically, I should have either hit 18 pans of shades of eyeshadow, I should have finished no pan left behind in 18 different palettes, or I could have used 18 shades 10 times to kind of purchase this eyeshadow, or I could have finished 9 shades to get myself there. So like there's ways that I could have gotten this palette, but realistically, every shade of eyeshadow I bring into my collection is a point taken out of my bank. So if I have an 18 pan, this insert is making this very hard to see. If I have an 18 pan palette, 18 points need to be taken out of the bank. If I have something like this where it's a 9 pan palette, 9 points need to be taken out of the bank. So there is that. I hope that is a little bit less confusing. I think holding up palettes and explaining it that way makes a little bit more sense. Now, if this is the part where it's a little bit confusing, I think, I'm also going to let myself, this is like my one little easy loophole kind of way. If I am redeeming my Ulta points to purchase a palette like this, if I'm like fully covering my palette cost with points, I'm charging myself half of the cost of pans, if that makes sense. So because this is an 18 pan palette, it's very easy to divide it in half and know I have 9 shades, 9 points that I would take out of my bank. It's going to be more confusing when it's odd numbered pans like this guy, where it's 9 pans. So half of the palette really is like 4.5 shades. When it's going to be larger or like odd numbers, I'm going to just bump the threshold up. So if I were buying a 9 pan palette on like Ulta's website and I'm redeeming points to cover the purchase, I'm going to charge myself 5 points or 5 shades because that's roughly half. Makes it a little bit more challenging for me, just a little tiny itty bitty bit more challenging for me for something like this. So that is really it for my eyeshadow bank. I'm really hoping to curb the eyeshadow consumption and just, again, have another excuse to try to use more of my collection with a little bit of a back the heck off of purchasing makeup, Laura. Just back off for a moment. Let yourself breathe. I have some shades in my collection that I definitely need to use and finish. If you missed my like 30 I want to finish before 2024, I have 4 or 5 eyeshadows in that project alone, or that like video alone, eyeshadow wise, that I want to finish up. Most of them are very minuscule amount of products left in those, which is why right now I'm going to give myself 2 points to finish. That is it for my eyeshadow bank project. This isn't really a project. It's just my eyeshadow bank trying to get a hold of my spending instead of purchasing. Now, I will say there are a couple, I definitely have been eyeballing some Pat McGrath palettes now that they're on Ulta's website. There is the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette, which I don't need, but I know it's beautiful. I don't need it, but it's beautiful. So I'm really going to try to limit myself into not purchasing makeup eyeshadow the rest of this month. Let's see how we do. Anyone want to guess if I'm going to purchase makeup or not, or like eyeshadows? Over the course of the next month, I haven't really decided if I'm going to make this monthly or if this is going to be like, I just need to check in every once in a while, every quarter kind of thing. I haven't really decided. Let me know in the comments below how frequent you would like to see this kind of video. If it's something that you would like to see monthly, or if it's something you want to see every other month, I'm fine doing it that way. If you want to just see it when I actually have goals to go over, that's fine too. I would love to know how you want to see this video structured. Also, if you have any recommendations on my point system, let me know. Again, I really just flew by the seat of my pants in this video and just was like, we're going to just see what comes to me, and that's going to be the rules. But that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, thank you so much for staying tuned, watching, subscribing, liking. I really enjoy chatting with you guys in the comments. But that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you are staying healthy, sane, and safe. And I will catch you in the next video. Bye.
Can I get a 17 hit right now?